We get started. I'm standing in for Rista, who's surviving her own health issues today, but she's still here, trooper. So why don't we start by going around with introductions? Let me see. I'll go by my screen. Aaron,
Aaron Butters, I'm the Environmental Planning Director at Naugatuck+Valley Council of Governments.
Mark,
Yeah, Mark Nielsen, Assistant Director at NVCOG.
uh, Rista, you just want to wave.
Sure, Rista Malanka, Northwest Hills Council of Governments, co-chair.
All right, Rich,
Rich Saleo, First Selectman, Thomaston.
our other Rich,
Good morning. Rich Donovan. I'm the Director of Transportation Planning for NVCOG.
and you still owe me a phone call.
I know I do.
Jerry,
Jerry Lukowski, Director of Public Works, Watertown.
Heidi,
Communications Associate at NVCOG. Nice to meet you guys.
Kim, Kim, you're muted. I'll come back.
Is that me?
Tom,
Oh.
Tom Doherty, Environmental Planner, NVCOG.
James,
Jim Culpa, VHB, Consultant Liaison for DOT Local Roads and Program Manager for the Transportation Alternatives Program.
okay, and the other James, James Stewart,
Jim Stewart, Naugatuck Public Works.
Tony,
Tony Adili, Town of Thomas and Land Use Administrator.
let me come back to Kim.
Sorry, I was having trouble with my audio. Kim Bradley, I'm the Trails and Greenways Coordinator for the Connecticut Department of Energy and Environmental Protection.
Desiree,
Desiree Blanchard, Communications and Community Engagement Coordinator for NVCOG.
okay, I think we've got everybody, and we've got a full agenda. So why don't we get started? Who's going to make the presentation about the Zero Action Plan?
That is me.
Okay, take it away.
Great. Thank you. Yeah. So, though not directly related to the Naugatuck River Greenway, the Greenway does play an important part in kind of our long-term vision for how this works out. So, Aaron thought it would make sense to do a presentation here. We were awarded Safe Streets and Roads for All funds a couple of years ago under the federal program to develop a regional Vision Zero action plan for the region, for all 19 towns. So back in 2022, the NVCOG board took the action of adopting a Vision Zero target to eliminate all of the fatalities and serious injuries on our roads. This really takes a different approach to roadway safety than we're used to, with the number one difference being that we believe that roadway fatalities and serious injuries are not inevitable. They are not a necessary element of having a modern transportation system. And because they are avoidable, we should do everything we can to prevent them. And they are unacceptable in our region and on our roads. So with that mindset, we went into this project looking to identify the locations where we could make the biggest difference in the shortest amount of time. Unfortunately, the Naugatuck Valley performs worse than the state overall, even though we are generally on par with much of the country. And so, as far as Connecticut's Vision Zero goals, we also play an important role in advancing roadway safety statewide. So we spent about a year and a half on this, going through and doing an in-depth analysis on the locations where we have the most crash history, and we'll pull that up on the next slide. But based on those locations and based on the crash types that are happening in the region, we identified a series of interventions, some that apply region-wide, things like looking at replacing mid-block crosswalks with higher visibility and with things like rapid flashing beacons, or looking at a regional roundabout program to replace dangerous intersections with the much safer alternatives. But we also talk about some location-specific items. And so we take, in here, if you can go to the next slide, we took and looked at every segment across the region and identified those where fatal and serious injury crashes are happening most often. We then took those and put them together based on kind of the logical connections between segments and developed this map, which is the list of the 20 most or the 20 highest priority corridors in the region to address where the most crashes are happening. And so or where the most serious injury and fatality causing crashes are happening. What this does is gives us that list of the 20 highest priority locations in the region for us to come up with some kind of an intervention. You'll notice a lot of them are along the river here. They follow the same path as the Naugatuck River Greenway. And a lot of the fatalities and serious injuries we see happen to vulnerable roadway users, people on bikes, people walking, or using other micromobility devices. So giving a safe alternative to traveling on street for these users, which is where the Naugatuck River Greenway comes in, is really a key action for us in helping to eliminate these fatalities, especially for the people who are most vulnerable while traveling. And so, the NRG is one of kind of a broader or a broader array of trails that we're considering and proposing across the region as part of the active transportation plan, all with kind of that same goal of helping to eliminate the number of conflicts between especially vulnerable users and automobiles, to provide a safe and a comfortable place for people who want to travel not by car. But that doesn't mean that all of these crashes are happening with just vulnerable users. There's a number that occur with between vehicles, and so we're looking at a number of solutions for those as well. And you'll see that Route 10 in Cheshire, the northern portion of Route 10 in Cheshire, which follows almost exactly parallel to the Farmington Canal Greenway, also shows up on this list. So, again, the Greenway is not a single answer that will address it, but it is an important piece of the strategy. And if you can go one more slide. So as we do, we put together a PDF plan because that is what is actually required of us under the award. But we know that people don't really look at those. They're not necessarily a helpful or valuable tool for the vast majority of people. So we decided to go with a different approach on this one as well. We used the hub site feature from Esri to build basically build out the plan in a much more interactive and user-friendly way. And so what you're seeing here is a screenshot of the actual front page of that website, which is envision-0-nvcog.hub.arcgis.com, which is not a great URL, but it's kind of what we got. And I would, strongly encourage you all to take a chance to take some time and look at it and let us know what you think. We want this to be something that's valuable for our communities, for decision makers, but also for the public. And so the more feedback we get, the more we can tailor the content to be what people actually need to see, and what they're going to take away from, and how, and give them, give our residents the tools that they need to help advocate within their towns and within the state for the types of improvements that we're talking about. So across the top, about Vision Zero is some background on the Vision Zero movement. This has been a 30-year project started by the Swedish government, that has really taken off worldwide, and we have seen a lot of success. A number of cities, and including 2 here in the United States, have fully eliminated traffic fatalities and serious injuries from their roads. And right here in New Jersey, Jersey City and Hoboken both are coming up on multiple years now without a serious injury or fatality, which is an incredible accomplishment, and one that we're trying to learn as much as we can from, along with hundreds of other cities across the country that have adopted a Vision Zero goal. The core, though, about what makes Vision Zero work is that instead of expecting every driver to do the right thing every time, or every traveler to do the right thing every time, it acknowledges that people make mistakes. I mean, I'm sure we've all looked down and noticed we were going a little too fast, or run the yellow when we weren't sure if we should or not. It's part of being a human, is that we were going to make those mistakes. And so rather than building a system that requires we all do the exact right thing every time, Vision Zero looks at building a system that is forgiving when those mistakes happen, that acknowledges that when those mistakes happen and somebody is involved in a crash, that those crashes cause damage, that humans are vulnerable. And so it is all about minimizing the amount of energy that gets transferred into a person when a crash happens. And so we have a bunch of resources and some links to other entities across the state that are working on Vision Zero, and some national resources. And a huge thank you to the entities like Watch from ECT and the Connecticut Vision Zero Council, who have done a ton to help advance this work across the state. The next tab up here is the Envision Zero strategy. That is our clever branding. That's not all that clever, but this is really where we break down what it is that we plan to do to solve this problem, to address the fatalities and serious injuries happening across the region. So there's a link to what is currently still our draft Vision Zero action plan. That plan is going to be put before the NVCOG board on Friday the 20th. So if you want to take a look, if you have comments on it, please let us know. Bring those comments to the board meeting, send them in writing. We'll pass them along. But it's a great way for it's a way for them to see the work that went into this, but also to understand the way that this is a flexible program that will change over time based on the changing needs in the region and based on feedback from residents. We do break this down. So there's a regional, the draft plan that's there is for the full region as a whole. We also then have a little annex for each town that includes some specific data, as well as any particular projects within the town that we call out as high priority. The projects tab is exactly what it sounds like. So up here, we break out all of the projects that are happening in the region and their anticipated impact on roadway safety. Crash maps and data, again, exactly what it sounds like. That map on the previous slide showing the high priority corridors is on this page, and it is interactive. We also show all of the crashes that have taken place in the region over the last 3 years that resulted in a serious injury or a fatality. And so, thank you, Aaron. So if you want to get a sense for where are these things happening in your community, this is a great place to do it. It updates in real time. So we will always have 3 full years plus whatever we have recorded already for this year. And again, I want to give a thank you to UConn for hosting an incredible repository of crash data. When we talk to our peers out of Connecticut about the level of access to data we have here, they are often very surprised. And so we're really lucky we're able to do this at a much higher level because of the information they put forward. And that does update in real time. And then lastly, resources. These are a number of links to plans that we've done in the past related to roadway safety, work that's being done across the state and across the country related to roadway safety, to advocacy organizations, to the federal government, and information from the Federal Highway Administration about roadway safety. So all of this, again, is really designed to be a resource for residents and travelers through our region to learn about the problem and how we are working to solve it as we continue to work towards zero fatalities and serious injuries on our roads and across the entire region by 2060.
Any questions? Hey, Rich, just a question. Do we have any data on safety on the greenways themselves?
So we would only have any crashes that took place between a car and a trail user. So we can see where it's happening at road trail crossings, but we don't on the greenways beyond that. I would generally assume, although I can't say this for sure, that there are probably not serious injuries or fatalities happening along the greenways, but it's possible that there are.
Yeah, we've had previous discussion, or at least one meeting, we talked about the growth of electric bikes on trails, which changed the dynamic. In fact, most greenways don't even know how to deal with it. I know the city of Derby just passed some new ordinance about all-terrain vehicles, but they really didn't think about the greenway. I've even seen people with full-blown motorcycles on the greenway. Hard to believe, but so
sure.
We also haven't caught up with the technology there yet. But all right, any other?
Actually, I guess if the police file a report, if a crash report gets filed along the greenway, I don't see why it wouldn't end up in the repository.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
So,
Rich, I'm not sure if it will. But yeah, you may be right that if the police are involved and called and they create a report, the only concern might be is that they may not locate the crash on the greenway. They'll do it at the nearest intersecting road. That's always the kind of the issue. But Jack, your point about the e-bikes is really something that I think a lot of communities are dealing with because again, the real problem is the motors on the e-bikes are easily modifiable. So even if you buy a class 1 that's max speed of 15 miles an hour, somebody can easily modify it to go a lot faster. And it's like anything. If they're riding in a reckless manner, it's more likely to create a crash. And the problem with on the greenway is that the differential speeds is so great. People are walking, and then you have somebody going along on a 20-mile-an-hour e-bike. That's a big differential. So
Yeah, and I mentioned Watch from
Initiative.
ECT is one of the entities doing a lot of work around this. They have put together a working group across the state, and Kate from our team regularly participates, trying to come up with some recommendations about, what should ordinances look like, what regulation should be put in place at the state level, where can maybe DOT or DMV intervene around e-bikes and the potential impact they will have.
When our Greenway opened, no one thought about e-bikes, but they did have a speed limit on the Greenway for regular bikes of 8 miles per hour. And e-bikes, well, no electronic devices were allowed on the Greenway other than motorized wheelchairs. So again, it's a different world. That's why I asked the question, but appreciate all you've done with this other work. It'd be great to have no pedestrian deaths if we could possibly do that. So, all right.
That's what we're working for. That's certainly the goal.
Yeah. All right, let's move on. Trails program, the deep trails program updates. Aaron, are you going to do that?
Sure, Jack. I just wanted to, let the committee know. So last meeting we did go through a bunch of the projects that were being proposed by the communities on the Greenway, and we're putting in applications to the Rec Trails program. There's a few changes, a few additions since we did meet, but I just wanted to give everyone the list of support that the committee did provide. So with the co-chairs, we drafted and submitted letters of support for these projects. And I don't know if anybody wants to talk about a specific project. Please speak up. But we did support Naugatuck's application for design of the Naugatuck River Greenway between Pulaski Way and Platts Mill Road, which is on the the Naugatuck Waterbury line. One of the high priorities in our prioritization, also probably one of the more difficult sections of trail. So definitely in need of support there. Watertown submitted an application for additional funding for the design of the Greenway between Branch Brook and Icehouse Road. That's another high priority on our prioritization. Thomaston submitted for a funding gap to hopefully move that TA project that we've been sort of hoping comes around. Torrington, we submitted a support letter for Sue Grossman Trail extension planning and design. We also submitted, this is not necessarily specific to the Naugatuck River Greenway, but WestCog is resubmitted an application for an east-west trail study. So looking at a sort of a routing study between a trail in eastern New York and the Farmington Canal Trail, which would cross the Naugatuck River Greenway, basically follow for at least part of the way, the route of the same rail line that the Larkin Bridle Trail follows through Southbury and Oxford and Naugatuck. And then we also submitted a support letter for the Yukon Trails program, which includes the Connecticut Trail Census and Connecticut Trail Finder. So I posted all of the letters in the calendar invite for this meeting, so you can review those if you'd like. And just, if you're ever looking for funding or submitting an application, just know that, you can request support letters from the committee, and, we're certainly happy to assist with writing those too.
Aaron, when will we learn about the success or failure of these applications?
That's a question for Kim.
That's why I was happy to give an update on this process. I think I saw Rista's on here as well. So just so everyone is aware, back in September, OPM put out some new guidelines on grant management approaches. And what that's resulted in internally within DEP, there's been efforts within the agency, probably across the agency, working with our legal teams to ensure that our approaches for scoring applications review are kind of coming up to par with expectations across the state. So there's been a little work, there's been some efforts from our Greenways Council subcommittee to get everyone kind of aligned. And what that has resulted in is a little bit of a delay in our review process. So internally, we've come up with an internal DEP committee who's doing the scoring of these applications. So I am happy to note that the scoring of the applications is nearly complete. Just to note, we did receive 73 external applications, and there was a request of just over $21 million. So RIST is highly involved in working with us to get the subcommittee aligned and get the materials over to the subcommittee. There'll be a special meeting of the Greenways Council, the council members only, within 2 weeks to discuss kind of the overall process with the deputy commissioner and kind of get everything set. Following that, our Greenways Council will get the application materials along with the scoring and ranking initially developed by DEP, and we'll go through a series of review sessions. This is very similar to what we've done in the past. So we're definitely looking forward. I just know that our subcommittee is used to getting the materials much earlier. So this has been a little bit of a new process for everyone. However, one of the biggest things that we have to face within this round is in every previous round we've gone through, everyone's aware that these funds are allocations of the bond committee. Therefore, although the agency has requested that these funds be added to the bond agenda, so all the way up through the commissioner of DEP, we've requested that this be added to the bond committee agenda. It has not within the last 3 rounds. So we're proceeding with review of the applications. However, we do need to have formal allocation of funding availability to present awards. So although we may finish this process, within the next month or 2, month and a half, if this does not get on the bond committee, we're going to have to hold that list. Essentially, what can happen and what's happened with groups or organizations that have put grants out from DOT all the way through DECD is often they will have the list of recommended funding put on to the bond agenda. So we anticipate that that may happen, that we'll have our list that goes to the bond committee. But unless this gets on the agenda, we cannot put forward awards until that occurs.
And, you mentioned $23 million in applications. How much do you anticipate recommending?
So I am not aware what our recommendation was at this time. I think within the last recommendation made by the agency, I would think it was 15 million. So we know, we have 30 million that has been authorized through the budget that is available. I don't know if it'll be adjusted based on high ranking scores or how that will go. That's still kind of working itself out and being determined. But we have upwards of 30 million that is authorized through the budget.
Oh, well, if you get it, you have more than enough to meet.
Let's hope so.
Yeah, we'll see. All right. Any questions? All right. Thanks for the update.
Absolutely.
The trail census.
Yeah, so that's me again, Jack. So I just, I'm sure most people know this, but there's some new folks on the line here. So NVCOG's been partnering with Yukon for almost 10 years now on the Connecticut Trail Census program. It's actually a program that we piloted at NVCOG originally in 2016 through a Deep Rec Trails grant. And the purpose was to try to start collecting good information about trail users on multi-use trails across the state. We started with 10 counters statewide in 2016. We've expanded now to over 30 that are owned and operated by the Connecticut Trail Census. And then we actually at NVCOG supplement those counters in our region with counters that we own and operate. And then we share our data with Yukon. So this time of year, we're putting all of the data together from last year, and working to update the Connecticut Trail Census website, and working to author an annual report that we publish every year. So I just wanted to share some of the initial results from trails across our region. So we use infrared counters that are placed out on the trail. These collect data 24 hours a day, for the entire year at most locations. They're in these lock boxes, so you may have seen these around. I know Jack's very familiar with the one in Derby that's been there since before 2016, actually. And we basically get hourly counts at all of these locations of people or really warm bodies passing these counters. And then we also use volunteer manual counts that are conducted at each of these locations to correct that data. So these counters are infrared counters. They're not perfect. They tend to undercount. People walking side by side are counted as one count. People going fast on bicycles are often not counted. So we use manual counts that are done by volunteers to correct that data. So I just wanted to share the data from the 3 counters that we have on the Naugatuck River Greenway currently. That's in Derby, Ansonia, and Waterbury. Derby has traditionally been one of the highest, the most used trails in the state that we're actually counting on through the trail census. It ticked down a little bit this year, but it's still the second highest that trail census is counting. The first highest being the Bluff Point, the main trail at Bluff Point State Park, which is a really, really busy location and is sort of different. It's not a typical multi-use trail. It's more of an access way to get into the park. But so Derby had 218,000 trips counted last year. Ansonia had 53,000. Waterbury about 9,000. And then I also put some counts from some other trails that are similar. Steelbrook in Watertown, Sue Grossman in Torrington with 105,000. Farm in the Canal Lock 12, just a little bit less than Derby, but that is on the Farm in the Canal Trail, which is one of the more heavily used trails in the state. And then Middlebury Greenway had 72,000. And then this is just sort of a graphic illustration of the daily counts over the past 2 years, and you can see, the sort of lull in the winter, but it never goes down to 0 in the winter, especially in Derby where they do clear the trail. So there's still, on days in the winter, still over 500 trips taking place on that trail, which is pretty remarkable. And then this is the same thing, just weekly counts, which shows, the similar pattern. And looking at days of the week, typically on recreational trails, we see much heavier use on Saturdays and Sundays. And on most of these trails that we're counting on the Naugatuck River Greenway, we see a much more uniform daily use across the week. It might just be because the people that are using these trails live nearby and they're using them daily recreationally. It might also mean that, on maybe the Waterbury Trail, especially there could be some commuting use, where you would see a more uniform or even higher use during the weekdays. And then the time of day as well. We usually get higher use before and after work on most trails, most recreational trails, and you see some earlier morning and later afternoon peaks here, but pretty uniform throughout the day in on all three of these trails. So right now we're still working through validating all of the data and correcting it and getting it up. But in the next week or so, all of the data from 2025 should be up on the Connecticut Trail Census dashboard. The link is on the bottom. I don't know, Desiree, if you can pop it in the chat. Um, the dashboard that UConn developed is really user friendly and really lets you play around with the data and compare trails. And you can basically click on any trail or groups of trails and get the data for that. There's also a yearly comparison tab at the top that you can look back through all of the annual data that we have to date and see some of those patterns. So you'll see that Derby did fall off a little bit this year. We haven't quite figured out why that is, but it's still heavily used. But yeah, I think it's really useful. I think it's informative for towns that have trails, um, to understand what the use on their trail looks like. We're also available. NVCOG is available, or Connecticut Trail Census to come out and do trail counts on your trails as well, on the Greenway or on other trails. And I think what we'd like to do this year is maybe do short-term counts on all of the sections of Naugatuck River Greenway and get sort of a snapshot. We did it back in 2016 on a bunch of locations, and I think it would be good to sort of do that again. And happy to work with you all to make that happen. Any questions?
Again, I think this has just been great to be able to have this data and share it with people. And when you couple it with the economic study that was done a couple of years, you have a lot of very great data that justifies building these trails. So I think we ought to remember that we do have that economic study, even though it's outdated now, but the results there were incredible too. So it's important to have data. So.
Yeah, and the key thing with the economic study was, yeah, it's a little bit out of date because we did it, but the relationships between economic impact and trail construction are still valid. If anything, the economic benefits, have gone up, based on, inflation and things like that. It's the relationships that were really, I think, the key. Get people getting out on a trail and having access to a trail improves their health, which has an economic benefit. Construction of trails improves quality of life in a neighborhood, increases property values. That still is happening. The specific numbers, yeah, they've changed, but the relationships between trail construction and the benefits they generate, they're still valid and still very strong.
Just the health data itself was enough to justify the trails.
Yeah.
Forget the rest of it. Just that by itself was overwhelmingly positive. So, but I would encourage people to go back and take a look at it again and see if you might use that data for any future plans on your trails. So,
and I just have one anecdote for the trail use, the trail count numbers. They are very, I think they're persuasive in grant applications. We just talked to Middlebury, who put in an application and received funding to buy a machine to clear the snow on the Middlebury Greenway in the winter. And I think it was showing that people were not using it when there was snow on the ground was very important. There's people in town saying, well, people like to cross country ski on it, and that just the data didn't show that. So they were able to persuasively argue that. No, people will use it. People use it in the winter when there's no snow on the trail. And, so, if you ever have a question,
with this year being an exception, on most of the trails, the snow is gone before you could get out there on
right.
the thing. But so I think the better value is being able to clear it. So,
yep. And I'm happy if anybody's writing an application and needs data, I'm happy to help you get it and, help you figure out what it means and how it can be used in applications like that.
Yeah, and we're available to do a synopsis or summary of the economic impact study, so you don't have to go through that whole, how many 100-page report to figure out what it all means. We can, obviously put together sort of, the key points and, key benefits from the trail development. So, but Eric, one quick question. You guys aren't tracking weather.
So we do in the report, we do, and we can
Okay.
go back and there's data from a couple locations in the state that have snowpack. So, when we can lay the data over that data from NOAA and show, there's snowpack this week, and normally on trails that aren't cleared, you see a big dip on those days, and
Yeah.
on, trails like Derby where they clear the snow, the next day that those numbers rebound after big storms. And
Yeah. Yeah, I was thinking more, because I find if it gets too hot, that's when I stop walking on the trails. If the humidity is really high or temperature real high, I'll sort of not go out that day. So I mean, it's not just snowpack, but temperature as well.
Okay, let's move on. We have any update on the Connecticut Trail Finder? I guess
again,
we do.
you guys are hearing way too much from me today, but so the other side of the Yukon Trail program is Connecticut Trail Finder. And this is it's a public website that's really designed for trail managers to post authoritative information about their trails to the public and help the public find trails that are appropriate for them. So there's over 425 trail postings across the state on this. It just surpassed 2,500 miles of trails that have been posted, which is pretty unbelievable. And all of the information that's up here is trail manager approved. So whoever's managing these trails is putting this information up there. So, it's a lot, it's better information than you're going to get on crowdsourced apps like All Trails. The managers have control over, saying this is an authorized trail, this is not an authorized trail. They can post, trail closings or other important information that people need to know. It's constantly being updated, so trail managers can go in and change things as they please. And it's completely free to use for the trail manager and for the public. Here's just a couple examples. We worked a few years ago to get all of the open sections of the Naugatuck Greenway up here. So we worked with mostly municipal officials to get, to map them and to get the proper information up here. And just, a couple examples of what a trail posting looks like. So there's several tabs there. The details on the left, you can put really any information you want up there. Rules and regulations, historical information. Really, it's up to the trail poster or the manager. And then the map is really, I think, really important just to show people, before they get out there what it looks like. You could click on individual trail sections and see, how rugged it is or how, what type of trail it is. There's directions to the trail, to trailheads, and then comments. And then I just want to sort of highlight a newer feature, which is Trailside Services. This is really a way to get trail users to your local businesses and to get your local businesses involved with trails and trail users. So anybody can make a posting, but typically these are restaurants, bike shops, outfitters, ice creams and breweries are probably the most important trailside feature for most people, coffee shops. So, like I said, I think it's a really good economic development tool. So, NVCOG has recently taken over the economic development district. This is going to be one of the things that SEDS is going to start working on is trying to help businesses get incorporated into this. So, we're happy to help if you all are interested in doing this for your trail section. So you can see, in Derby, or in Naugatuck, I'm sorry, the example here, there's really only one service, and I know there's a bunch of other restaurants and bars and ice cream shops in Naugatuck that I think would make a lot of sense to have up here. So we're available to help. Tom has been working a little bit. Tom Doherty at NVCOG has been working a little bit on this. But like I said, I think it's a really good way to get trails more noticed, to get more people on the trails, and to get people on the trails to spend money in your communities. So I just wanted to point that out. And then also, and so this is what a trailside service posting could look like, or looks like. This is a really simple one. Connecticut Trail Finder team at UConn has been going around and sort of putting some of these up here, and then sending them to the business owner. But so business owners can own these and put whatever they want on there, or it can just be a simple posting with a link to their website and information on how to get there.
Aaron, how close to the Greenway does the trails service have to be?
That's really up to you. So it basically just, when you click on Trailside Services, it'll give you a list of the closest ones to the trail that you're looking at. So, it could be a restaurant anywhere really. And, if it's close enough to a trail, it'll show up when you're using that feature.
Now, at this point in time, is it the service, the local manager that does those postings?
Most of the ones that are up there now were developed by UConn. So they went and they looked in these communities and said, okay, here's a couple of restaurants that look like they're close to the trail, that they'd be, they're sort of casual restaurants, casual eateries. So they created these, and then contacted the business owner and said, we're putting this up. You're welcome to take ownership of this and, make it, as complex or, as informative as you feel necessary. And then there are a bunch of other businesses that have been putting stuff up as well. I see, Kim, you have your hand up.
Yes, I just wanted to bring up, I was thinking about it before. So I will say, in general, think about the type of trail you have. If people can drive to these services, it doesn't have to be a walkable service from what this has been established as. But I wanted to bring some context before you wrap up on the Trail Finder, that right now, kind of a standard reference that we have is that Connecticut has over 2,500 miles of trail. So the fact that Trail Finder has already reached 2,500 and has quite a bit in the works as well, we're probably, this is providing us the opportunity to just get a better metric of the mile of trail and recreational opportunities we have within the state. So I want to applaud this. I wanted to note that reaching that 2,500 mile mark for trail is actually very significant, and to just explain the impact that this program is having. Not only is it outward facing and all these amazing features, providing like a go-to location for kind of verified data rather than crowdsourced data, but also it's providing a database across the state for the multiple classifications of trail resources. So beyond just our state park trail systems, it's bringing in our land trust recreational access, as well as municipal and multi-use, multi-use paths as well. So it's very exciting, all the work that's going on here.
I have one question. Does the Connecticut Tourism map to this as well? Do they link to it?
So that was an initial concept, I think, when this program was developing, was to link directly to Visit CT to populate these, trailside services. At this time, it does not, but I think, I think there is increased and continued encouragement to keep working in that direction.
Yeah, I was thinking of the other way, that they would link to us rather than us linking to them. So, but it goes both ways, I guess.
Yes, and I know, at least internally within the agency in particular, when it comes to, state park resources, this is going to be our go-to. So the DEP is a very strong partner within this, and there's incredible collaboration between Yukon Clear and our agency and our GIS specialists within the agency to kind of keep consistency of ground truth data essentially for all of our state parks and forests. So we're working towards that goal and continue to do so. And I know I'm a strong proponent of trying to have this as kind of a link on our websites. We're still working on that, but I do see in the future this being kind of the go-to and having direct links from both our tourism site as well as DEEP. But we have a lot of work to get there. And that's why we're working with tourism, because tourism develops their narratives. We're trying to pull them to the resources that we're promoting rather than kind of broad aspect, links like all trails and so forth. So I think there's some encouragement and work we need to do to get to that point.
Great resource. No. All right, let's move
And then
on.
just
Oh,
one quick thing, one other brand new feature that Trail Finder has is embeddable maps. So if you go to the NVCOG Naugatuck River Greenway web page, we've put an embedded map right on our web page that has all of the locations of the open sections of Naugatuck River Greenway. And you can click and drag and interact with that map right there on our webpage. There's also a link below it that you can view it full screen. But I think it's a really good way to get people to the trails, to the information, to get to the trails really easily. And we also have an embedded map to the right that has the route of the trail and open sections and sort of the progress that's being made. So those are both on the website now. We just did like a minor overhaul of the web page thanks to Heidi. So take a look, check it out. And if you want an embedded map on your website or on your web page, we can certainly get that for you. So just let me know.
fantastic. All right. Project updates. Waterbury, Rays, anyone?
See anybody here from Waterbury?
Don't think so. Because that's still such a big part of it. Anyone have any information to provide about that?
I haven't gotten an update in a while, Jack. I know, I haven't talked to Judy in a bit.
Yeah, I know they're moving ahead with it. I mean, they still always have that concern that they're going to reach a point and the money funding's going to get withdrawn or canceled. That doesn't seem to be a likely scenario, but they are still moving ahead with it. But again, I think part of the concern is just funding, because I think the construction costs are going to end up being higher than what they were awarded. So, but last I heard, they are continuing with the design. We should probably check with Judy on getting the update.
So they just signed an agreement with DOT about doing rights of way, and I believe that work just started.
And that was a big delay because the city DOT wasn't going to help them with the right of way, and they needed to figure out how to do it internally. So, as Rich said, signing out an agreement with DOT to have them do the acquisition is real important.
It was an important legislative change in the last session, allowing DOT to do rights of way acquisitions for trail projects and active transportation projects.
Oh, okay. All right, how about Ansonia? Change of administration there. How's that going? Rich, were you involved with that? Who's handling that design?
I saw Jim Culpa was on. He may have because VHB is handling the design, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I just messaged Bill to see where he's at. I know we're working on a PD. So we got the plans pulled together. We're just pulling together the supporting documents like the cost estimate and the design report. Looks like next week we'd have the docs pulled together.
Who in the city of Ansonia is involved at this point now?
Sheila is still involved with the capital projects. With like
Oh,
there's a CMAC job too that we're working on with them.
okay.
Um, Actually we're overseeing that one, but she's still involved to a certain degree.
All right, because that's why I mentioned this new administration, because Sheila's Economic Development Director in Shelton right now. So, okay, so it's good to see it's still moving along. Jerry, you want to talk about Watertown?
Good morning. Yes, we just awarded the contract to Kelowna. We got great bids. The estimate was like 2.5 million. The lowest bid, and they were all packed pretty tight, was 1.9 million. We did have the pre-construction 2 weeks ago. We're going to proceed this coming spring. The key for us is we have to get in there and remove trees before the bat season begins on April 15th. So far, so good, great design. And we're going to start construction this spring and summer. So if anybody wanted to stop by, you're welcome to reach out to me when we're building it.
Okay.
And how great a distance is that going to be?
It was about 1.5 to 2 miles.
Right.
Plus, we have one flash and beacon cross site across French Street. We do have one pedestrian bridge. So I was looking at that counter. It's on the other end. That should definitely increase once we have the trail operational in the fall.
Right.
So Jerry, that was for the Steelbrook Greenway.
Right.
Do you have an update on the design for the Naugatuck River Greenway?
Yeah, so my thought with losing the raise grant, and thanks for reminding me this, is to use the source selection that the NVCOG did as our basis to hire the consultant. And then with the existing funding that we have, to go to 35% design. And we did put in for this next round to finish the design. But I know we'll be in better position if I have a consultant on board and we actually started the 35% design.
Yeah.
So you're moving along. How about Naugatuck?
Jim Stewart here. We're on the survey phase. Of course, the snow is not helping us, so
All right.
there you go.
All right. Kittytown. There's always something going on with Kittytown and that dam. Aaron, are you going to report on that?
Yeah, we're still moving ahead. Our design consultant for the dam removal, GEI, has pretty much wrapped up all of their data collection. EPA is wrapping up their environmental assessment work. So the trail design has sort of taken a back seat the past few months until we get all of that information. All of that is, the location of the trail or the available place to put a trail. It really depends on how the dam is removed and what happens to all the sediment that's behind the dam. So, I think once we have a couple alternatives for dam removal, we'll, sort of re-engage and really start thinking through how that trail is gonna be routed through the property.
But the funding is in place now, right, for the dam removal?
We have about a little over $52 million right now committed to it. It's unlikely that that's going to be enough to do the full project, but we are still, we're still working on that part. The sediment removal and dealing with the sediment management is really going to be the biggest cost driver. We know that there's about 800,000 cubic yards of variably contaminated sediment behind the dam that has to be dealt with safely. So we got to figure out what we can do with that the state has really stepped up and we were the last budget had $25 million of bond funds in it to help us get started with that. And we may need more funding though to get it done.
Okay. But progress, that was just kind of what's his name's dream. How many years ago?
Kevin, yeah.
Kevin Zach. Yeah. Amazing how far that's come. Shows what one person can actually accomplish by driving everybody's crazy about it in a good way. In a good way. All right, anyone else? All right, let's move on. Funding submission and opportunities, connected dot microgrant program. Anyone?
Yeah, DOT has another $750 million available for microgrants this year, awardable in chunks of up to 5,000 at a time. The program's been incredibly successful. We saw, I forget what it is, it's 1,200 new bicycles given out in Waterbury schools, in Waterbury alone. So, anybody who's interested, please reach out. Tayo on our team has been helping to coordinate and doing a really great job connecting schools and some of the police departments directly to the program.
Super. Okay. Anyone else? Events and outreach opportunities. I guess you can say that the unofficial anniversary of the start of the Greenway comes up this year. In June, the Derby Greenway will be officially 20 years old. And of course, that was the first segment of the trail open. So, I feel good about that. We don't have any event planned right now in Derby. The only thing we've got planned is we're putting a plaque recognizing the opening of the trail and including the wording about the Naugatuck River Greenway. That was the first section. It is ironic, though. We're celebrating this as part of the Naugatuck River Greenway. When that trail first opened, it was because people at that point in time were talking about building the trail along the Housatonic River from Long Island Sound all the way up to Massachusetts. And that's a dead issue. I never hear anyone talk about that again. And yet, look how far we've come in 20 years. So, that's all I've got to say about it, unless there are any other questions.
Jack, if you were interested in having an event, we could definitely assist. So, let us know. I think it's a really good opportunity to promote the success of the Derby section, especially.
The irony is the plaque is going to be on the Housatonic River site because it's being built into the flood control wall. So I don't think anyone in town is paying any attention to it. So I don't know what to say, but it should be celebrated. Again, look what's come out of it. And again, that was just a few people sitting around saying, "Hey, why not us?"
Yeah, and again, the connection over the Derby Shelton bridge. Again, that's that's a good point to have some kind of a celebration because it celebrates the two projects that link the two downtowns and maybe linking the two rivers symbolically.
Yeah, I saw the mayor was speaking at Rotary the other day, and that was one of the things he was proudest of. He specifically said, he and the ex-mayor of Derby got together and started pushing that. And I know even our local Rotary Club paid for the original study.
Yeah,
that was done about it. So, again, great stuff. And that bridge looks fantastic. It really does. And much improved traffic flow because of the redesign of that bridge, and much safer too.
Yep.
So.
And it's funny, I haven't been there since the project was complete, but they did complete the Greenway connection to the bridge, right? Because that was sort of my concern that somehow that actual connection was going to be sort of dropped between the two projects, the 34 and the Derby. But that was completed nicely?
On both sides, yeah. Both sides.
Good.
So.
Like I said, I haven't been down there since to actually see it.
Yeah, I still don't get a lot of bike traffic. I see people complaining about that. They still don't understand why the bike lanes that they don't understand. They see it and they think that the bridge was widened to put the bike lanes in, and that they could have had another lane. Well, they're wrong. The bridge is the same width as it was before.
Yeah.
It's just better utilized and safer than it was before. So
Yeah, and actually we did end up putting an additional travel lane on the bridge because before it was just 2 lanes. Now we
yeah,
got a third. So
it's people's memories of what it was are quite different than what it really was. So
and again, the intent was to just separate that any bike traffic from the road traffic, just so it would be a whole lot safer. So that's why we did the cycle track lanes.
they are a lot safer. A
Yeah.
lot safer. Great separation from the traffic itself. So. All right, Trails Day. Anyone? Anyone
Yeah,
have any?
again, we have a bunch of material to share if you all are having a Trails Day event and want to promote the Greenway at it. We have all sorts of information and stickers and placards and giveaway stuff. So, let us know. Happy to be involved with any of those events too if you have them.
All right, other business? Anyone? News? I can tell you, I'm still frustrated. We have a bridge on the Derby Greenway that needs a lot of work, and the city actually allocated an enormous amount of money 2 years ago. 2 years ago, and the work hasn't even started because as they were doing it, they realized that they had a lease with the railroad company that had expired. And obviously they can't do any work until they get that done. And it's 2 years later now, and still nothing's been done. It's unbelievable. Most towns struggle because they don't have the money. We've got the money set aside, and still nothing's happening. Very, very frustrating. But it also shows the power of the railroads. They can do what they want, but it's just very, very frustrating because it's like $400,000-$500,000 that's sitting there to do the work, and nothing can be done until they get a new lease with the railroad company. So that's a downer for Derby, I have to tell you. No. Anyone else? Okay, I think a motion to adjourn might be in order then. Someone want to make the motion to adjourn?
I
Don't be
make the
bashful.
motion,
Okay,
Jerry.
Jerry made the motion. Do I hear a second?
Right.
I'll second Tom.
Tony made a second. Okay, all those in favor? Aye.
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 Aye, and you can see the schedule, May 13th, a little bit better weather, so we may think about maybe doing a tour of some site at that point, then August and November. So we'll see on May 13th, one way or the other. Thanks.
All
Thank
right.
you. All right, bye.
You.